Okay, sick.
Okay, I
Um,
guess I'm just going to
all right.
introduce myself first. My
Yeah.
name is Chidima. I'm a freshman and I'm an engineering major.
My name is Eric. I am an economics major, and I'm actually a senior, so this is my last semester, so I'm enjoying it. But yeah.
I'm Jose. I'm a sophomore and I'm a human resource major.
I'm Alejandra. I'm a sophomore environmental studies major.
My name is Maddox. I'm transferring to construction science right now, and I'm a freshman.
My name is Angel. I'm a sophomore IDIS engineering major.
All right, so I guess we can just look at, let me go to the first question here. All right, so I guess the first question that is posted is how fragile is water? And I mean, I guess I'll just go first and talk a little bit about what I think about it. But I mean, I guess water's fragile. I mean, I guess it's kind of both. I mean, when you look at like the surface tension aspect of it, like, if you put your finger in water, obviously it messes it up, but then there's also like small creatures that can run on top of it, which is quite interesting. And then it's just fragile in terms of like, I mean, if you think about it, you heat it up too much, it evaporates. You know, get it too cold, it'll freeze. So structurally, the structure of it will get messed up. And I don't know. I mean, you it can get polluted quite easily. I don't know. Water pollution is a big issue. So I mean, I think that in itself says that it's fragile. But what do y'all think?
For
When
sure.
I looked it up, it said water is like most fragile at room temperature, and then like when it freezes, it's less fragile because of like the crystalline structures and stuff. And then also like on the other end, water can be like really dangerous because of the natural disasters it causes. So it really just depends on like the context.
Did not know that. Yeah. And then I know it's like pretty fragile in terms of like its availability for like human use and stuff like that. Like I'm probably gonna mess up the numbers, but I'm pretty sure like something crazy like only 2% of the Earth's water is like fresh water, and then even less is like actual drinking water that we can use because half of that is like frozen in glaciers. And like little shifts in like the climate and even just rain patterns can like completely devastate an area. Like think about all the droughts and stuff like that. And because fragile can be, I guess, used like more loosely or like not loosely, but like used in other ways, like just like in term of like availability and stuff. And obviously like industrialization was a thing and we like, we have to live and function as a society as well, but we probably don't do it the best in all ways, and because of that we'll like pollute it and kind of jack up its purpose or like, kind of mess up the water.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that like everything we do kind of affects the water cycle and all that shit. Like deforestation, urbanization, all that stuff. It causes increased temperatures, things like that, which in turn causes evaporation, and that kind of disrupts a lot of our water resources. So,
I think it's a little bit of both. By itself, water can be strong, but it becomes more fragile as there's more human activity, especially with pollution. I mean, it gets contaminated, so a lot of the water that we're able to get, drinking water from the surface, if it gets polluted, it's very hard. It's irreversible. It has various irreversible changes. So I feel like pollution is definitely one of the key factors in how fragile water can be.
I kind of agree with human. I feel like that's like the main thing that comes to mind when like this question's asked. Uh, so yeah.
Do you want to move on to the next question, or do you want to keep working on fragile water?
You can move on.
Okay, the next one is what are the worrisome changes to the hydrosphere? So essentially just like still dealing with water, like what are like just factors that are causing changes in it? Like I know there's like if you look at like fertilizer, sometimes there's this thing called like runoff and it'll end up in the ocean. And obviously that's not the worst sounding thing, but eventually the fertilizer will fertilize certain plants and seaweeds and stuff in the ocean. And since plants they'll like I think it oxidizes, that might be the right term, the water and it kind of takes away some of the oxygen. I mean, and maybe it puts too much oxygen. I could be thinking about this the wrong way, but it affects the ability for the fish to breathe in that area where all this new seaweed and kind of plant overgrowth happens. And that's just like an agricultural aspect. There's also like the fact that pollution's a thing and different stuff like that and affecting the hydrosphere.
Yeah, exactly. And like the pollution in the oceans and stuff, it affects like their habitats as well, like coral reefs. Like I know, like I forget what it's called. What is it like?
Bleaching, I think.
Bleach. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm pretty sure like most of the coral reefs around like the United States like don't even really like exist anymore in like their functional form. And so I mean, yeah, that aspect. And then I mean, rising sea levels is an issue, like, especially with like the glaciers and all these ice sheets apparently like melting faster than we want them to. It can cause a lot of erosion and salt water getting into like freshwater systems, which then in turn affect those communities that are inside those freshwater systems. So yeah, just stuff like that.
To add on to that, I would say, yeah, rising sea levels because of like the cryosphere melting, and I would say ocean acidification. That's also like affecting the hydrosphere, and then water scarcity is also a concern, and then also all the pollution and going on in the ocean and all bodies of water.
Another worrisome change to the hydrosphere is also like climate change because it alters the precipitation patterns and it leads to more frequent and intense extreme weather. So like more floods and droughts. And so as the atmosphere warms, it holds more moisture, which leads to changes in the distribution and intensity of precipitation. And that means basically that some areas will experience like more severe droughts, while others will experience a lot more flooding, which has obvious bad effects. So, yeah, that's another thing to consider.
I
I feel
guess
like,
another
oh,
oh, you can go
sorry.
first.
Oh, okay, thank you. Pollution definitely has what I think is the biggest effect since, I mean, a lot of the pollution from companies, for example, their wastewater, they just dump it wherever's nearest instead of having regulations. So definitely, just those companies dumping whatever waste they have into the nearest body of water they have, it not only affects the company by itself by not having regulations, but also any animals that live within the aquatic ecosystem. So, and it's also affecting the how much drinkable water we have.
I guess there's also sections of like I know there's like cultivation, like irrigation that is needed, and it takes up away like most of the like of our water that is actually drinkable and like usable. So that also brings a like a big like question as to how much that affects it. I think it was like I don't know if it was Texas or California that like most of their water or usable water was going towards agriculture purposes. There's also like the dams that are built, like the reservoirs, right? Is that what they were called? Like the plants to make energy. Uh, like that was also a big concern because it was affecting like like the pathways that runoff went and in turn affecting more of the how much drinkable water was actually able like we were able to use. So I think that's another concern.
And I guess the only other things I can really think of would be like going off of what we've already kind of talked about. Like if these bodies of water, let's say, are like warming up, for example, like that could promote like invasive species to take over those areas and outcompete the native animals for food, and then in turn disrupting local ecosystems. So I mean that's really the only other thing I can think of.
So y'all, sorry, y'all want to move on to the next question? All right. So it says, how do we resolve water conflicts? And I'm not too like I don't know much about this, but I guess when I looked it up, it said international cooperation. That's like what it would take, which makes sense because you need like all the big countries to participate and try to like come up with solutions.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is obviously everyone just having big conversations with like what to agree upon because we need to like hold certain corporations and stuff to like a certain standard. Because obviously like realistically you can't just be like no pollution whatsoever. Like there's definitely gonna be companies like admitting stuff one way or another, whether it's just through climate change with the carbon emissions. Although some companies are like carbon neutral now, so you could like somehow push that agenda to like try to get that going. But in terms of just like dumping it into the water, you definitely just need to have certain regulations and laws, especially international laws, because it's not just like America, like all countries have some um contribution to it. So just finding like I don't know, just probably UN needs to meet and just discuss this stuff and just figure out like how can we like hold everyone accountable because like we all live here. So
Yeah, I think it's kind of like other things we've talked about in like previous units, like deforestation, for example. Like it's kind of just like a give or take. Like you have to look at it in terms of like there's a bunch of different perspectives, whether it's like an economic perspective in terms of like people using water for like production, and whether it's who owns the water, like in the oceans, or uh, yeah, how much pollution some companies get to do versus others. Um, I think it's just very like complicated. And so like you were saying, we kind of just have to come together and you know, look at it from all different perspectives and try to find like a give or take that like we're comfortable with, I guess.
like going off like government managing like institutions like waste management stuff like that. I think it's also important to look at a smaller scale. Like for example, here in Texas, like how the water's divided. I know there's rules and or laws in rural areas where it's I think it was a law of a rule of capture is what it was, which is like if someone owns like the land and whatever water is found there, like they have the right to use it as they see fit. And I guess it comes back to like, well, like what's fair to for them to have all that water and other people like are having problems with that. So it just I think it's also important, like I mentioned, to look at a smaller scale to see how to resolve that. Because it does come back to like government and like it's up to them how they see fit.
Also, it has to do a lot with money. Big corporations, depending how they see fit on their regulations and stuff like that. It's more like, well, why should we do this if we're not having any benefit for it? But it's like, if you really think about it, our planet is slowly dying. So it's like, why would you not want to at least decrease the amount of negative effects or negative impacts that you have on it? Also, it's every single country, depending on their laws and stuff like that. It's also very hard because not all countries are affected by problems the same way. So it's like, well, like for example, the Paris Agreement plan from I think it was 2015 within the UN. I feel like that definitely helped all nations see what they can do individually to help decrease the effect of climate change. But I feel like money will always be the biggest factor when talking about regulations and any laws and trying to enforce more sustainable options. But I mean, what can we do as well?
The question also talks about merging divergent, or I guess just different perspectives. So do y'all think that there's like any different like approaches that would come up in like a conversation like this and how like people could like possibly resolve that and like how to regulate or how much to regulate the corporations or just different groups of people when it comes to this type of water conflict.
I'd say again, like it's gonna be really difficult because like not everybody has the same amount of impact. And then, pe money, of course, people are worried about money. So it's gonna be really, really difficult to like come to an agreement.
For sure.
Yeah, I think, I mean, yeah, we've all kind of already said it was going to be difficult, but I think it probably will just take like maybe special types of people, like people that, have a different, like we were saying, everyone's just going to focus on money. And so you need someone that is able to consciously think about the fact that they need to not put money first, if that makes sense. I don't know, because I feel like it's so easy to like uh, put money first, just kind of like because it's kind of the center of everything, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it would kind of just take a special personality uh, to get in there and be able to like really focus on everything outside of money. Yeah, I don't know.
for sure. And then moving on to the cryosphere. I get it, it's just asking what is the cryosphere? Better questions are just like how it affects. Like obviously it's just like well, obviously I looked it up, but it's just everything frozen. Just glaciers, icebergs, all that. So just how does like their presence or maybe the presence of humans and pollution and stuff and global warming and that whole thing, like how does like melting of them like affect how we live or just like the environment?
I guess the cryosphere melting is really bad because, we've heard that there's diseases trapped in the ice caps or whatever. And so that would cause like another plague that we don't need. But that'd be really scary if they were to all melt because of all the global warming and the carbon emissions and all of that.
Yeah. There's like those random, you'll see, honestly, I think we all probably see like the post where it's like random disease that's been trapped for 2000 years is gonna get released.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, I don't want to see what that is because
yeah.
yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, there's like like y'all kind of touched on it already a little bit, but there's the like atmosphere part of it where, like the carbon dioxide levels and all that, but then there's also like the opposite and like the oceans and how how the changing temperatures would affect the ecosystems on there, and then the ecosystems on land as well. Uh, that with the ice melting and yeah, like you were saying, the disease, whatever disease getting leaked, like whatever else is under there. I mean, I don't know. So, I mean, I think it's definitely interesting, not in a good way, but you know, I don't really know what would happen, to be honest. I don't really know much about that stuff.
Yeah. I think I know water I don't know how there's probably something more scientifically sounding, but I think I know just like I mean if tons and tons of gallons of water getting dumped into the ocean because of melting ice. I'm assuming the water is going to rise and probably start flooding. I'm not going to be like, oh, California's going to sink or anything like that, but like water will probably start creeping up on shores and stuff. And there's definitely a more detrimental effect that I can't think of right now, um, because of that, but it definitely is like detrimental or like necessary that we like ensure that doesn't happen. Although like there are like warming and cooling stages to the earth, there is definitely like human effect that we can mediate and lower the impact of.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna go off
agree.
of like what you said. Like you mentioned, like the rising sea levels. I know there's like places I don't remember where, but it was in the videos. It mentioned how like indigenous people had to like consider like relocating because of like uh their houses being flooded because they were so much like close to the shore. Um and so that causes like concern like for them because they base their whole life like on that one place, like generation of information is just passed down. And having to relocate doesn't come like easy. Like there's also like the aspect of money, which they sometimes don't like, even have that in like their culture. Like they're living to survive, like meaning like they are one with the environment, so they use like what they have, like such as like fishing or hunting. And when you have to move, it just takes away like all the knowledge that you've gained like through generations. Um, and so that was also something that like came to mind when you like this with this question. Um, Also, I think you guys were mentioning about the changing in like the ice stages. I know there's an explanation that there's always like ice water that forms and goes away like twice a year, and like it was decreasing like the amount of times it came back, so that was like kind of concerning as well. I don't know.
I think we have like 5 more minutes left.
Yeah, like I tried to look up some stuff. I
Mm.
guess the melting of the cryosphere also affects like extreme weather events. So I guess it would cause more heat waves, droughts, and hurricanes. Um, I guess the melting of the cryosphere starts to cause shifting in the air currents, which I guess affects these extreme weather events. And then um, I guess going on the same topic, I guess increased natural disasters. Like extreme coastal erosion and landslides and avalanches and stuff like that.
One thing to also consider is like if all the ice sheets melted, um, the sea levels would rise by about 70 meters, which is 230 feet. So that would affect a lot of things. Like a lot of cities would probably go away. So that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, that'd be devastating. I know for sure Louisiana would be gone, like without even thinking.
I put down on my notes that it also, I don't know if someone mentioned it, helps control the Earth's climate since it has a high albedo as well, so it definitely helps keep our temperature cool. And also, well, as Angel mentioned, the local indigenous communities that live there are also affected by it. If there's any changes, it affects their food security. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other things we could talk about, like obviously there's a bunch of readings, and there was a reading on like groundwater, which is essentially just the water like in the soil or under the ground, and extremely critical, but often pretty overlooked. And groundwater actually makes up for 1/3 of the world's fresh water. Um, and yeah, it's as you could imagine, like the water in the ground could be easily polluted and easily messed up, and especially by like big corporations that are just focused on money. And so, yeah, that's an important thing to focus on that most people don't really talk about or think about.
Yeah, I remember I want to say it was Brenham, but it wasn't Brenham. It was a place in Dallas. Well, not in Dallas, but a little on the outskirts of Dallas. There's like a fracking incident and the people's water was pretty much just dirt brown and stuff. And it was because there's a company was fracking pretty much like right, I don't know if it was in their actual neighborhood or right next to it. And it just completely like jacked up their water and they're like, okay, this is not all right, like, you know. And
Yeah,
obviously that was just for like people drinking their water in a like suburb that's not even just like we're messing up our like future with the ocean and stuff. Especially with like you said, it's like a third of our pretty much drinking water. So jacking up with fracking isn't ideal in any way.
exactly.
All right. Well, I think we're done now. So I'm gonna stop the recording.